Welcome to this session, Facilitate an Acting-Based Course to Improve the Communication Skills of Emergency Medicine Professionals. I'm super excited for our presenter speakers, Dr. Alexi Del Vecchio, who's a trained actor, I just learned, and also currently at the Mayo Clinic. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And Dr. Philip Moschella, who is here also with us, but also has double duty, so he may have to moderate and such from Prisman Health.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm just here to help support Alexi. He's amazing, and you will find this as entertaining as I know he will make it be. And
thank you, Dr. Moschella, and thank you, Wendy. We had a lot of people sign up for this session, or at least added to their calendar. There were like 50 or 60 people, so I'm hopeful that many of them will join us shortly, but we'll get started. It's great to have you all here. Like Wendy was saying, I'm an actor, so I thought I would start by giving you some background about myself. An emergency medicine resident at Mayo Clinic. Before pursuing medicine, I acted since childhood in film and voiceovers. I'm originally from Montreal, and I'm the French voice of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Studied drama at Yale, worked in Hollywood for many years, including for the Hallmark Channel, producing Christmas movies, and have been teaching acting throughout that time. I became interested early on in my medical training to find a way to utilize my performing arts background to improve healthcare delivery, and created an acting-based course, a very small part of which we'll get to experience today, to develop and improve the communication and interpersonal skills of healthcare professionals. The course has been taught at multiple medical nursing schools, residency programs in the United States and Canada, to medical nursing students, PAs, NPs, even faculty, physicians, and attendings. Since COVID happened, we've been much more limited in conducting the workshops in person, so we've adapted a portion of the workshop to be taught virtually via Zoom. As we know, we're pretty used to Zoom by now. You know, it's been about a year and more since COVID happened. We've ironed out most of the kinks, but I found that with anything virtual, there's always something bound to happen, some technical difficulty. So I just ask for your grace and patience should we encounter any difficulties today. The name of our course is Facilitate, and it's an acronym that stands for flexibility, adaptability, communication, emotional intelligence, and listening, improvisation, theater, and acting training, and educational curriculum. I've told you a little bit about myself. I'd love to go around the room, ask you all to introduce yourselves. If you could tell us what your name is, where you're coming from, your institution, what you do there, and why you wanted to take this workshop.
I can start. I'm Wendy Chang. I'm at University of Maryland. I'm one of the EM neurocritical care faculty there. Never had any acting background, but always been interested, at least been told by people that, to take an improv class or something like that, just to learn some of the skills.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Wendy.
I'm Sierra. I'm a third-year rising fourth-year med student and one of the medical student ambassadors for SAN. And I'm looking forward to getting into this presentation because I read the learning objectives and it sounded really interesting and definitely applicable to emergency medicine.
Absolutely.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
Yeah, my name is Lucas. I'm a research fellow at the Mayo Clinic Rochester with you there, Alex.
Yep.
I did a few acting back in high school, but never thought about using that to actually improve my communication skills. So I'm interested on this topic.
Awesome, it's great.
Yeah, great abstract yesterday, Dr. Silva. It was very well.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Pry. I'm a research manager at Ohio State. And I'm just interested in how these skills might be able to translate into what we do in the research realm.
Wonderful. Okay.
Hey there, I'm Kat Ogle. I am an assistant professor at GW in Washington, D.C., right down the street from Wendy. And I I love acting. I never had any formal training, but every time we had, skits to put together for medical school and, residency and the like, I've joked around that when I retire from medicine, I'm just going to do stand up or something like that.
Awesome.
We had one person that just jumped in there. Ucha Khatri. Sorry, we were just going around the room. Ucha, I know you just jumped in, but we were trying to introduce ourselves and just make sure we know everybody that's in the room. So if you could.
Utsa's my former medical student. Now she's a boss.
Well, she was in the room and then
I think she jumped out. Yep.
I hope I didn't scare her away.
I think we have one more. I think Kat.
That was her. That is
Oh.
Yes.
Yes, I see you on screen. I don't have all the cameras, so that's why. So then I think we have Anitha, maybe?
Yeah. Hi, morning, everyone. I'm actually in Singapore. I'm an emergency physician. Yeah, I thought your title was quite interesting, so I just wanted to hear more about it. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's great to have you. The other thing I want to make sure is if everybody could put their cameras on for you to get something out of the workshop, you'll need to be on camera. All right. And I know, Dr. Michelle, you've been having issues with your camera. So we'll
have to consider it just a very large shadow puppet without any shadows.
There you go. Awesome. All right, so some of our learning objectives for today include the following. We'll introduce a set of acting-based tools to improve patient-centered nonverbal communication. We'll demonstrate empathy using our body language, embrace presence in the moment to connect with patients, discuss the concept of status when interacting with ED patients, and we'll practice mindfulness techniques to improve our connection with patients when working under pressure. So a little bit of background, why develop nonverbal communication in the ED staff? As it turns out, a professor of psychology named Albert Moravian, and I'm probably butchering his name, who's over at UCLA, did research on verbal and nonverbal communication in the 60s and came up with this general conclusion that about 93% of communication may in fact be nonverbal. That is to say that 7% is made up of the words we choose to share content. 38% of our meaning is transmitted through our voice and tone, and 55% is contextualized through our body language choices. This is not meant to be taken literally. Obviously, we derive a lot of meaning from what people tell us, but the general gist of his findings was that, especially when we share feelings and attitudes with other people, these three parts of the message, words, tone, and body language, need to be congruent. And what he found is that if the receiver of the message, if those are not congruent, the receiver of the message tends to trust the impact of facial expressions, tone, nonverbal body cues, more so than what we actually say to that other person. I'm going to be demonstrating the exercises with a volunteer from the group. We have Dr. Moshella here, so I'll most likely be demonstrating with him. And we'll take turns playing the exercises in pairs. I'll be referring to the exercises today as games. We'll be acting, so this is really playing with each other. I invite you to not judge yourself. We're going to look silly at times. We're going to embrace our silliness together. This is a no pressure zone, and there's literally no way for you to mess up the exercises. And if you do, we'll embrace those failures together. I'm going to try to make the game explanations as clear as possible, but if anything is unclear, please speak up and let me know. Also, make sure you all have everybody on gallery view so you can see everyone. And the last thing I want to do is assign numbers to everyone. So if we could go down the list, and if you could change your username, if you go to the participant window and then click more and then rename and just put a number before your name, that's going to help with the exercises. So I'll just go down the list. I'll be number 1. Dr. Michelle can be number 2, and we'll have Sierra be number 3, Wendy be number 4, Anitha number 5, Ava, who just joined us, thank you for being here, will be number 6, Jason 7, Jennifer, I think Jennifer just jumped off. So 7 will have Kat, and then Lucas can be number 9, if I got that right. Yeah, I think. think I did. And I'm going to change mine to rename. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5. Perfect. 7, 9. And Ava, if I'm saying your name correctly, why don't you be number 6? Perfect. 7, 8. And then Jason, will have you be number 8. Fantastic. All right. We'll start with a warm-up to get us in the mood for today. This is meant to get you to feel your body in space and engage both your mind and physicality in the room. I'll explain the exercise and then we'll do it all together. This is called Crazy 8s. It's also known as Shake It Off. And what we're going to do is we're all going to stand up and I'm going to ask everyone to do the same. I'll be demonstrating and you follow along. And what we'll do is we're going to shake off our left hand. And as we do, we're going to count down very loudly from 8. So we'll go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we'll do the same thing with the right hand, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Same thing with the left leg, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Same thing with the right. And then we'll count down from 7 and then from 6 all the way to 1. Each time alternating between our different limbs. And as you do that, I want you to shake off whatever emotions, stress, anxieties you may be bringing with you to the session today. Just let it all out. Use your body, use your voice to rid yourself of whatever preconceived notions or worries you're carrying inside of yourself right now. Whatever state of mind you're in, whether positive or negative, whether you're having a great time at ACGME, maybe your kid woke up in the middle of the night and you're exhausted, whatever it may be, just use that energy and channel it through your voice and your body. So let's all stand up and we'll do it together.
You can't see me, but I'm standing, I promise.
I believe you, Dr. Michelle. And we'll go on my count. 1, 2, 3, and 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 2, 1. 1, 1, 1, 1. Woo! All right. Oh. How does everybody feel after doing this? Feel free to shout out any words, write it in the chat. I'm reading that really wakes you up. I love that. Whatever words come to you, whatever emotions, whatever sentiment.
That was fun.
Fun. I like that.
Silly and playful. Yep, that's part of it. Yep.
Yeah, I started laughing in the middle of it because it just seemed so ridiculous.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit, but we use this to really get everybody engaged, right? Anita, Lucas, what do you guys think? Like, you know, and part of it is to say that, yes, you can look silly, you can look playful here, you can look, you know, anything in here, but it's also to make sure you understand that during this exercise here, that's going to be physical as well as mental, right? And that's part of it, is to make you aware of your body. This is your hand, this is your leg, this is your foot. And you may not even realize that all of those pieces of your body are playing into your body language, right? And so you have to be aware of your body and your whole body, that all of that is going to be what is being projected to you, the patient, in your unconscious body language, right? Whether your legs are turned towards the patient, whether they're crossed, whether your arms are crossed, whether your fingers are crossed, whether you're steepling, whether you're not, all those different things are all part of it, okay? And you have to be aware of your body and your body in space.
That's exactly right. No, I agree with everything Dr. Michelle said. And, you know, to summarize, Crazy 8s is an exercise in presence, right? It brings your attention to your mind, your body, your breath. It brings you back into the room. It's a way for you to check in with yourself, to center yourself. I use it in my practice all the time. So before and after I have to break bad news to a patient, or after a difficult patient encounter, or a code, or say a death in the ED. I mean, not physically, like shake it off in the hallway. I may get some funny looks, but sometimes it's a mini shake off, or it's the mental exercise of shaking off the energy in that room so that I can approach my next patients with an open mind and an open heart. There's a lot of different ways that we can apply this in practice. I've heard from medical students, especially if they know they have performance anxiety, that each time before they go into the room, they'll do a mental shake off, or before they present to their attending, they'll engage in the same exercise. And so I think doing that physical and mental pause really forces you to take the time to assess where you are emotionally and mentally, acknowledging, accepting your own state of mind, and then leaving it at the door before you meet your next patient. And I think this is especially important to do if your department or institution doesn't have a formal debriefing process in place after difficult cases. So it's on you to engage in that. Now, as it turns out, presence as it relates to patient-centered communication matters quite a lot. This was a systematic review published in JAMA out of Stanford in 2020, and they identified 5 key recommendations to promote physician presence as a means to develop a connection with our patients. And their first recommendation was to prepare with intention before we see each of our patients. And that just means before we step into the room, taking a moment for ourselves, centering ourselves, taking a deep breath, shaking it off, whatever works for you, clearing your mind, getting in the right mental space so you can get focused when you walk in. As it turns out, some studies have shown that present physicians enjoy better patient outcomes, they're happier, they experience less burnout and cynicism, and they have longer career longevity. So it's good medicine for your patients, and it's also good medicine for us. The next game we're going to play is called Mirror Mirror. This is a game that makes you conscious of your body language and that of other people. We'll be playing in pairs. We have assigned numbers, so we'll go by these numbers. What I'm going to be doing first is demonstrate with Dr. Michela. Dr. Michela, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a prompt in the chat. And what I want you to do, oh, you're actually, I guess you're not on camera. So how about I demonstrate with Dr. Silva? I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. Silva. And what I'm going to do is send you a prompt to you personally.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. So I want you to imagine that you're going through this situation that I just sent you, and use your body language to express those feelings. But the rule is you cannot use your voice. I mean, you can yell, you can cry, you can scream, but don't actually verbalize what is going on. And what I'm going to be doing is mirroring what I see in you.
Okay. So I can't say anything. I just have to show facial expressions and okay.
Yes, exactly. Using your body. Exactly.
All right. I don't know how far should I go.
No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So that's exactly right. I won't reveal what the prompt was to the other participants, but we'll go along and now we're going to flip. All right. So I'm going to I'm giving myself a prompt, and I want you to mirror my body language. So that's awesome. Are you sure you're not an actor? Because that was very good. All right, excellent. So let's have, I'm just going down the numbers here. Let's have Sierra and Wendy work together. And then Sierra, I'm going to private send you a prompt. There it is. If I can copy that. All right. All right. So Sierra, this is your prompt. And then Wendy, you'll just be observing Sierra, and I want you to mirror what she shows you. And again, Sierra, no words. You can yell, you can laugh and all that, but we don't actually want to use any words, and try to express with your body those emotions.
I think Sierra's one that can't turn her camera on.
Oh no! Okay. In that case, how about we have Anitha? And Anitha, I'm going to send you this prompt.
Yes.
All right, Anitha, we'll pair you with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
And Anitha, use your body to express that situation. You may not have experienced this, but you can show us what it would feel like.
Just a second. Let me just read this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's fantastic. No, that's awesome. You did really, really good. Wendy, I'm going to send you a prompt and then we'll flip. And then Anitha, I want you to mirror what Wendy shows us.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all good.
That's awesome. That's really good. And I hope this never has happened to you. We'll chat about the prompts in a little bit. Let's have Kat go next. And this is going to be your prompt. And let's see who hasn't gone yet. How about Vicken? I don't think you went. So how about I match you with Kat and just mirror what Kat is showing you. That's awesome. I love how much you guys are committing to this. This is fantastic. We'll flip, and then Vicken, I'm going to give you.
I didn't even realize Vicken had glasses too. That's perfect.
All right,
and I took them off when you did.
All right, Vicken, this is your prompt, and then Kat will have you mirror what Vicken shows you. Awesome. Fantastic. Did everybody get the chance to go? I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Oh, and we have Dr. Michelle on camera. This is fantastic.
Sorry about that. I just restarted just so I could get there because I know it's a little better if I could try to interact. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm not sure. Did Terry, did you get to go? Your microphone is on mute, Terry. All right, so I think we're having some difficulty there, but I think I've already got the chance to go. So lots to debrief on here. Dr. Michelle, any thoughts about this exercise, mirror, mirror?
I think it's a great mirror. The other again, it's really trying to highlight again that there's a lot that you can say with just your body, that the words are only a small part of it, right? And moreover, you can convey things that sometimes you're not trying to convey while the words are trying to say something different. Now, there's other exercises that we can go over that do that a little bit more explicitly. But again, when you do this in a live session with everybody that's around you, it really does break home that you can get 80% of the story with just body language, right? And a lot of what is important about the story, by the way, which is body language, right? Because depending on the feeling that's behind it is really what you're trying to help that person through when they come to the emergency department, right? If it's angst, if it's pain, if it's suicidality, if it's depression, if it's some other stuff, right? Being able to read somebody's body language and being cognizant of your own body language and how that's affecting the tenor of the room can be really important to having a good encounter or having a good connection with a patient, right? Moreover, being able to be truly cognizant of your own body language and making sure that you're just cognizant of it, right? Is super important. You may not be able to change it, and we don't want you to fake it, but you should at least be cognizant of how your body language is projected.
That's exactly right. I agree with everything Dr. Michelle has said. When we do this in person, we have another exercise that we do that's called Pass the Word. And essentially, we form a circle, and then we have the participants verbalize an emotion. So I'll say joy, but with your body, express a different emotion. And then bringing attention to that discongruence and how that doesn't feel natural, but bringing attention to the fact that sometimes clinically, we have a patient says, oh, their pain is 10 out of 10, but they look in absolutely no pain whatsoever, and vice versa, and bringing your attention to that fact. What also I find interesting about this exercise is that the prompts you were given, and just so everybody knows, I mean, prompts were things like, I just matched at my #1 choice for residency. I just broke up with my significant other that I've been dating for the last 10 years. I just was served a malpractice lawsuit for the first time. Even though you have perhaps in your lifetime never experienced those situations, you can imagine them, right? You can imagine what it would feel like. And vice versa, even though you don't know what is the prompt given to the other person, you can see the emotion they're giving you and then mirror it. And so really, mirror, mirror is an exercise in nonverbal empathy. And there's lots of definitions of empathy out there, but one that applies directly to the healthcare setting is as follows: the ability by the physician to understand the patient's situation, perspective, and feelings, to communicate that understanding to the patient and check its accuracy, and to act on that understanding in a helpful way. And one way we can do that, express empathy and actively listen, is actually via mirroring their body language. I mean, this is very much a component of active listening, utilizing nonverbal feedback, such as smiling, eye contact, leaning in, and indeed mirroring their body language. Albeit we did it in a very exaggerated way in this exercise. But studies have shown that if you mirror your patient's body language, they actually perceive you as being more empathetic. Other ways we can also get at a level in mirror is getting at the patient level, pulling up a chair, and just observing the energy, the vibe in the room. Are you walking into a room where it's like a high intensity, everybody's really concerned, and then addressing that concern, or it's sort of laissez-faire and like, I'm fine, I just want to leave. And so I find myself, and we hear a lot from participants, that when I assess a patient or reassess them or give them their workup, I sort of walk in with a big smile. I'm like, so happy to say, hey, nothing life-threatening going on. We've done our due diligence. You're good to go. See ya. But then that's not what the patient is hearing, right? They're only half reassured because it's like, well, I was pretty sure I wasn't having an MI, but what is happening? What is going on? I don't have all the answers. And so being mindful of that and mirroring their concern is something we can do and do utilizing our body language. Going back to that study in JAMA about physician presence to foster patient-centered communication, one of their other key recommendations is to explore the patient's emotional cues. So in this case, meaning mirroring emotions, but also naming that emotion as a way to validate their concern, their state of mind, saying, hey, you seem worried or distressed or wherever it may be. What's interesting also with that is that it gives an opportunity for the patient to correct you if you're wrong. And studies have shown that patients appreciate, even if you were wrong, that at least you try. It makes them feel more heard, more listened to. Obviously, we have to be careful about the language we use. We don't want to put words in the patient's mouth, especially with a frustrated or an angry patient. A better phrase might be to say, it appears to me as though you're really frustrated by X, Y, Z. I want to acknowledge briefly when utilizing tools like mirroring and others, the difference between empathy and sympathy and compassion. Sometimes these terms get mixed up. And what the literature shows is that if you experience the patient's emotions as your own, which often is defined as sympathy or compassion, that's actually associated with increased rates of depersonalization, emotional exhaustion, burnout in residents and attendings, as opposed to if we utilize our definition of empathy, observing the patient's nonverbal body language, acknowledging it by mirroring it, stating it back to them. Studies show that if you do that, patients perceive us as being more empathetic, but you're still maintaining that healthy distance with your patients and therefore fostering your own well-being. Next, we'll play a game called What Do I See that builds on some of the skills in this exercise. This is an exercise that allows you to focus on the intentional and unintentional messages we send to other people and reflect on assumptions we make about others based on what we see. So we'll be going in pairs again. I'll be demonstrating with Dr. Michela. And what we're going to be doing is making one-word observations about each other. So we're going to be picking single words, adjectives, nouns, adverbs, or verbs to describe the person in front of us. What's great is most of you don't know each other, so that's exactly the point of this exercise. And I want you to focus on what you see. What impression, vibe, emotion is the person in front of you giving off? Describe their physicality. Do they look relaxed or anxious, focused or distracted, uncomfortable or comfortable? I always have to give a caveat of, we want to remain professional and respectful. I've done this with a lot of different learner groups. We've never had any issues whatsoever. But I always feel I need to give that warning first. As we do this, we want to make sure that we sit up straight, have an open body posture with arms uncrossed out of our pockets. If you could have your palms up as well, indicating to the person that you are welcome to receive whatever they're going to share with you, with your feet anchored on the ground and eyes focused forward. And before each word we say, I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and then out through your mouth, and you're going to say, ah, as you fully exhale over about 3 seconds. And that ah should be grounded in your chest. It should be from deep within. And then you'll say your one-word comment, and we'll go back and forth, breathing, making observation, and then going back and forth. And as we do this, let's also try to make good eye contact with your partner. And we'll do this going along the line, trying to make 3 or 4 observations about each other. So let me try to find your camera, Dr. Michela. Let's see.
I think he left the room. No?
Oh, he may have left. Yeah, he's moderating another session at the same time. Talk about ED physician multitasking. So hopefully he'll pop back in. But Wendy, how about I demonstrate with you? So I'll go first, and then we'll go back and forth. Smiling. And I want you, and then we'll go back and forth. Yeah, take a deep breath, and then an observation about me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Big yeah, you utilize it. I know it's not natural. It doesn't feel natural. Yeah, Exhale, coming from within you like a tree trunk. Perfect, exactly.
Okay. Animated.
Female.
I don't know what else to say. Actor. I'm not very.
Home.
Focused.
Professional. So just one more.
Engaging.
This is also a feel-good exercise. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you're surprised about what you hear. Let's have Kat and Lucas play together. We'll have you make observations about each other. And Lucas, why don't you get us started?
Glasses.
Uh, 5 o'clock shadow.
Funny.
Kind.
Comfortable.
Cozy.
One more time, or?
Let's have one more. Yep.
Okay. Joy.
Smile.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Let's have Viken and Anitha play the exercise together. And Anitha, will have you get started.
Scholarly.
Himalayan.
I wish. Friendly.
Slightly embarrassed by the exercise.
Colorful t-shirt.
Likes cool mountain air.
Let's have one more.
Lots of books around.
Not showing your real environment.
Yeah. Very good. I love that. All right, Rita, why don't we have you paired with Sierra? Are you able to put your camera on? And that's okay if not. I can participate. I know we have a couple of people that have been having webcam issues. Okay, it's all good. So I'll play with Rita. And why don't you start, Rita?
Direct.
Serious.
Innovative.
Erudite.
Fun.
Well-groomed.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, it's good.
Calm.
Interesting. All right, let's give each other a round of applause. Everybody did really, really great. There's a lot to unpack here, but first I want to open this up to the group. A lot of different questions. How did it feel to be observed? And also any surprising observations. Was anyone surprised or didn't expect some of the observations made about them?
I know Rita personally, so I was surprised when you said serious.
Yep.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
It was quite difficult to take a deep breath and exhale because it's not normal. Yeah. So, yeah, and then getting the breathing in sync and thinking, yeah, was a little bit difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not necessarily a natural thing.
It also makes you wonder, like, how often are we holding our breath because of tension, you know? And I think especially in our clinical space, you definitely, if you take you make a concerted effort to inhale and exhale fully, you do feel a sudden sort of release of tension. And I think that oftentimes we're not aware of the tension that we're holding in our bodies with our breath.
I recently did another exercise in another forum a few days ago where everybody had to stand up and show their abdomen for about 30 seconds. And it turned out that everybody was doing chest breathing and no abdominal breathing at that time. And we had to practice abdominal breathing. I think this kind of forces abdominal breathing.
Right. Absolutely. You know, feeling that breath grounded in yourself, again, feeling your breath in the moment. So a lot to discuss here. I want to address briefly, I saw your comment, Vicken, in the chat about sympathy versus empathy. And you were saying empathy is a co-feeling, sympathy is recognizing your feelings and validating them. There's a lot of mixed literature out there, and it depends, you know, who defines it, and if it's a psychologist or if this is in a different field. So I don't think it necessarily matters the word that we use, whether empathy or sympathy, but understanding the difference of showing to that patient, hey, I care, I'm there with you, but, you know, maintaining that distance at the same time. So would anybody be willing to share an experience in the hospital where they felt they were being misjudged, either by a patient or by a provider, based on assumptions perhaps that they have made about you?
Other than the usual, hey, nurse.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, that's absolutely one, you know, that I was absolutely getting at. It's something I've experienced as a resident when I have a female consultant, and then I come in and then they say, "Oh, finally the attending," and I'm like, "No, this is my boss," and you know, difficult position to address that. So a couple more thoughts about this. I think, or at least my hope with this exercise, is that it brings attention to the assumptions and judgments we make about other people, including the concept of unconscious bias, right? Social stereotypes about groups of people that we form outside of our own conscious awareness. In the ED, we may do that unconsciously with our patients, but vice versa, our patients also make assumptions about us, right? Just the fact that we wear scrubs, we got a stethoscope, a badge that says MD. This ascribes us a status, and depending on the patient's experience, especially underserved minority patient populations, they may come into the encounter with a negative view of us, of the healthcare system, of you as a provider, if they haven't been served well by the system previously or just had unfortunate experiences with other providers. And so reminding myself of that and engaging in this exercise forces me, when I feel like I'm not getting through to a patient, to ask, what am I missing? Or have I misjudged them? Or what am I not seeing? And so, for instance, and I did that on purpose with Wendy, I said female, but I find myself more and more, at least here at Mayo, and it might be the same where you practice, not assuming, you know, the person's gender expression is male or female, and then using what they tell me and exploring that. And if the situation calls for it, asking what their preferred pronoun is. What we also practice in this game is to have an open body language, palms up, feet anchored on the ground, gaze directed forward, making appropriate eye contact. And studies have shown that healthcare providers whose body language is perceived as being more open and engaged increases the perception by patients that they're more empathetic. Some studies have even suggested that providers who take on these empathetic nonverbal behaviors are actually perceived by their patients as being more competent than, say, someone who speaks in a neutral tone of voice. Finally, and many of you brought this up, we engaged in this exercise in conscious breathing. It goes by different names. Some call it mindful breathing. And that's just another tool like Shake It Up that we can use to center ourselves, feel our breath in our body, ground ourselves so we can be fully present for the patient and release stress, release tension. And I think vocalizing it really helps. And that's something we can do that takes only a couple seconds that you can do before you walk into a patient's room, especially if you expect that's going to be a challenging encounter, before breaking bad news, after a difficult code or a death in the ED. There's actually quite a large body of evidence that suggests that healthcare professionals who engage in mindful breathing every day, and this is something you have to make a part of your practice if it works for you, those individuals have decreased anxiety, greater ability to focus, improve cognitive skills, and perform better under pressure. I want to bring your attention to another exercise that we conduct in person that I haven't found a way to convert to a virtual setting, and it builds on some of the concepts in What Do You See, and that's called Cocktail Party. And the way it goes is this. I give a card from a deck of cards to every participant in the room, and they don't know what their card is. They just stick it on their forehead. So other people can see the card, but you don't know what your own card is. And I'll give you a prompt. So say if we were doing this at ACGM, I would say, this is ACGM 21. This is one of the social functions, one of the parties. You presented your abstract, and now you're just interacting with the other fellow attendees. But the rule of the game is that you have to treat other people in the room based on the status ascribed to them by the card on their forehead. So I want you to treat the kings with reverence and dignified respect. And then the twos and the threes, they're at the bottom of the pack, don't treat them well, ostracize them. And then make sure you go and speak to every person in the room. And this is fascinating, but invariably every time, people very quickly get a sense of their own status, whether they have a high or low status, and then subgroups start to form, and you see the kings and queens hanging out together, and then the 2 and 3s may end up forming a group, or most likely they're just isolated. They just end up all alone. And then we have everybody form a lineup from lowest to highest status based on where you think you fall in that line. And it's a fascinating thing, but almost every single time it's a perfect lineup from highest to lowest status. And then they flip the card and they see. And then we facilitate a discussion about this that builds on the themes of What You See and a multitude of other exercises we can do in person, talking about unconscious bias, talking about the way that we treat other people differently based on the status that we perceive in them, how that's influenced by dress, body language, posture, sex, gender identity, race, and also how patients ascribe a status to us based on our position as MDs, and in ways we can alter our body language to display a different status. As we come to the end of our session, I want to bring up a quote by Stephen Rosenzweig. He's an emergency physician and faculty at Drexel, published extensively on mindfulness, an emergency report for emergency residents and medical students. And he said the following. He said, every patient suffers some sense of alienation, catapulted into an unfamiliar world, depersonalized by an unmarked uniform, transformed into an object of scientific and social scrutiny. And that really speaks to me. I think there is something, unfortunately, but inherently dehumanizing about being a patient, and perhaps especially so in the ED. Here you are alone in a room as the patient. If your loved ones are not with you, which in the time of COVID, that's been often the case, you're in a gown, most likely you're naked underneath. And here I come in with my scrubs and my stethoscope. And so before we even started, there's a power imbalance. That interaction, that relationship is unequal. The patient is vulnerable. Oftentimes they're afraid. And we're in an opposite state of mind, right? I mean, this is my element. This is comfortable. This is my home. This feels inherently safe to me. But most of the time it is not, for the patient, especially if they've had difficult encounters with the healthcare system before. And not only that, but then when I reassess you, you've been anxiously waiting and I have the results. So already, even in terms of the information, there's a power imbalance there. So I think anything we can do to normalize the patient's feelings, to get at their level, to develop rapport, to make our patients feel more listened to, holds potential to improve their experience and their sense of self-worth. Unfortunately, we're very limited by the virtual format. When we do this in person, there's many more exercises we can engage in. We toss balls at each other and across the room. We basically bounce off the walls, role play. It's very hands-on and a lot of fun. It's really just a small snapshot, of what we can do virtually. But I'd love to open this up to the group, chat with anybody. I also go and teach the workshops, at different institutions. I'd love to come to you if you have any interest. And yeah, we'd just love to open this up and see what everybody thinks.
Great job, Alexi. I would just want to reiterate what he says, that we still deliver this now with the nursing school here in Prisma/Greenville, South Carolina. And like I said, I've delivered the sessions down in Charleston to the emergency medicine residents down there in Charleston, as well as doing it at our own emergency medicine residency program. And the feedback's been really great. A lot of them really, really enjoy the sessions. It works great during our intern month as an icebreaker for the interns when they come together. Again, with some of these, a lot of the different exercises, especially with the first one, with some of the body language exercises and mirror and some of the stuff like that, it's a really great icebreaker. We put it way early in our intern month before the interns really get to know each other, and it becomes a little bit of a bonding exercise for them as well. Especially the time coming over with the masks that we've had to use when interacting with patients. It's been very helpful with that as well, trying to reiterate there's still a lot of body language that you can convey without even using your mask. In personal story and in using some of the tools that Alexi has taught me and some of the toolbox that I've built in, I went from one of the lowest top box scores in my Press Ganey to one of the top producers as far as top box in my Press Ganey, just using some of the tips and tricks that's there. And it's not that I'm lying or doing anything different per se, but I'm just more cognizant of my body language, and sometimes just explaining that. I'm a little bit more of a night hawk than I am a day kind of a person. So during my night shifts, I could see my body language is always being really turt and curse and short and everything else like that. So I would just explain to patients, hey, look, I'm tired just like you are. If I'm not looking at you, I promise it's not that I'm not listening. If I'm looking down, I'm just trying to focus on what you're saying. And just little things like that, like explaining why my body language may not match how I'm feeling for the patient and stuff like that, does worlds of a difference, right? And trying to make it over there. It was sort of shocking to me sometimes when I was shocked out of my bad body language when I come into a patient, come into one room angry and go into another room angry. And I didn't even realize that I was coming in angry. And the patient's like, are you mad at me? Like literally had a little lady say, like, are you mad at me? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Let's start over. I'm sorry that I projected that. I'm not, and that's the key is to make sure that you're aware of your body language, at least in this first session. And then going on from there, talking about the tenor of your voice, as well as what is being said, and making sure that you're listening to the patient and not just trying to wait for them to finish and get in your 2 cents.
You use a lot of techniques that are used, and you're probably aware of this, Alexi, called Vital Talk. It's a communication program nationally where you master tough conversations, and it's taught to all kinds of clinicians. And some of your techniques are the same that we use in Vital Talk. And so it was just wonderful to see that other people are doing it. It's great.
I was not familiar with Vital Talk, so that's
not familiar.
Really interesting.
So just go on Vital Talk's website. There's also one called EM Talk, and there's about 20 of us in the country who teach that. Huh. Or contact me, Rita Manfredi. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about it. Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's exciting to see different ways to go about
Yes, absolutely.
the same concepts. Yeah, and to Dr. Michelle's point, I mean, this is just a small snapshot. There's only 3 exercises. We've got 15 different ones that we do, and there's others, right? I mean, I joked about Dr. Michelle earlier. Multitasking. So we have an exercise that is about busting the myth of multitasking and how in the ED we can consecutive task, but not really multitask. You need to bring your attention to every task at once. We have exercises about, we're all familiar with closed loop communication, but we have one that focuses on also nonverbal, closed loop communication, not only restating, acknowledging, but using your body to make that eye contact, say in a code, with another patient. Mm-hmm. We have an exercise about not interrupting, right? Studies show emergency physicians interrupt about after 11 or 12 seconds, which doesn't feel like a long time, which I meant actually in the moment does feel like a long time. And then we have an exercise that's about that, telling a story as a group, going around in a circle and then not interrupting the other participants.
The other part that brings relevancy to this too, it's not just the exercises, but when we're done with the exercises, usually Alexi and I will bring forth different scenarios, like I mentioned there, where the patient said, "Are you angry at me?" And there's a whole litany of things that we bring out saying that, yes, I use this because I do this, or I use this because I do that, right? I can speak towards how we broke up, unfortunately, a human trafficking ring in North Greenville right here, because there was a real disconnect with some of these women that were coming in, talking about vaginal discharge and some of these other things, right? And the interaction was always very, very odd. It was very cold. It just didn't feel right. And some of our providers registered that and started to do a little bit more digging. And there was a human trafficking ring going on there, and that these women were coming in to otherwise get treated for their STIs so that they could go back to, unfortunately, their horrible situation. And we were able to sort of break that up. And there was a group of 5 women that were being trafficked in that area. And it was the providers recognizing that there was a disconnect between what the patient was saying and how they were acting, right? And trying to register that disconnect, right? And so, and we have a whole litany of stories like that go along with it. And what you'll find is that if you do choose to deliver this or do some of these exercises and go through there, that people will pick up stories that, yeah, I tried this and it worked, right? You don't need to try everything, but what we try to ask people to do is like pick one tool and try that, right? And just try to integrate that when you go through your next day or your next shift, and see if that really makes a difference for you, whether it's just trying to sit, whether it's just trying to listen, whether it's just trying to look. And again, the biggest thing I also tell patients and stuff like, or tell my residents too, is that the patient doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. The patient doesn't know why you're acting the way that you're acting, right? So it's okay to let them behind the curtain a little bit, right? Hey, I'm going to pull my computer up and I'm going to type in everything that you're saying. I may not be looking at you, but I promise I'm listening, and I'm going to parrot back everything you're telling me. Or, hey, we're going to make this encounter, or at least this initial encounter, really quick. I'm going to get through there, and just never lie to the patient, right? Try to be enthused with them and say, look, it's going to take 2.5 hours for your labs to come back. It's going to take this to, happen for here, and then under promise, over deliver, right? And that's the way we otherwise make it work. And again, just being cognizant of your own body language, how your tone is affecting the tenor of the room can be huge. And just trying to make you aware of that it's not just the words that you're saying. That's only 10% of the conversation.
Perfect. This was a terrific session. Thank you all for definitely getting us to participate and practice some of these skills.
Thank you so much, everyone. You have my contact info. Please reach out if you're interested, you want to collaborate, teach it, anything. Always looking to work with anyone interested. Always looking for champions and sponsors. So.
And it's not hard to mentor these and do these sessions on your own and stuff like that. You don't have to be a professional actor. As a matter of fact, it's I feel intimidated when I do these with Alexi, to be quite honest, when I do it with him, because he's so much better at this than I am. But again, you're on stage. People are watching you, whether you think it or not, right? And so technically, why you don't think it's a stage, that what you bring to the room and your presence and everything makes a big difference, And so just being allowed that. Like I said, I can't speak highly enough about how much we use this at our own residency as an icebreaker during our internal orientation month, and the residents really like it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Congratulations.
Thank you.